Aaron Smith.
Hi everybody, it's fantastic to see so many people here. Can everyone hear? Can everyone see? Hi, great. So I've been asked to introduce Marvin tonight. First, before I talk about Marvin, nothing embarrassing, don't go red. I'd just like to say thanks to Khan for that fantastic range of food that we've had here, and his people as well. And thanks also to regional officers and staff of regional office. Where's Phil Gaskin? I know he likes to be the centre of attention at every event that's held in the South West Region Labour Party. Where has he gone? Is he around there somewhere? I can't see. But Phil and the staff at regional office for supporting this event and getting us organised, and for Helen, where is Helen, who is just the most amazing volunteer that I think I've met there. Well done, Helen. Thanks everybody, well done. So I first met Marvin in 2006 when I was the candidate for council elections in Avonmouth. An election I didn't win on that occasion, but he came to support my council campaign at that time, and I remember us walking up a sunny street in Avonmouth, because it never rains in Avonmouth, and we were talking about the campaign, and he talked about the ward which he knew very well because he'd grown up in part of Avonmouth in Lawrence Weston, and it was really obvious to me then that Bristol ran through Marvin's veins. Growing up, a mixed race boy with a white mother in a largely white community in North Bristol, he really felt all parts of Bristol. It was also obvious as we tramped through the streets of, as I said, sunny Avonmouth in April, that he had found his home in the Labour Party, which he'd recently joined then, I think in 2006. And our paths have crossed many times since. We worked briefly together in the health service. We both share a passion for health service, and particularly for a good public health service, and how a good public health service can play such an important role, not only in shaping people's lives, but also their ambitions, and working on a philosophy about the power of people and how people can take power in their community and actively shape their communities and determine their lives, rather than have services that do to people. We also share the joys of a young family. He's a little behind me in the age range, but he's also got 3 children, although he's deviated from the all 3-boy perfect family to having a lovely little baby girl recently. I've just stuck to boys. I think once you know what you're doing with something, you should just stick to the same thing. So good luck with that. But we had a good debate in Parliament last week, which I was able to take part in, about family-friendly Parliament, available via my website if anyone wants to look at that in more detail. And as I said in that debate in Parliament, we've made huge progress in the Labour Party about not only being more representative, having more women, I'm a big fan of the all-women shortlists, as having driven a change in Parliament, but also having more families in Parliament. And also, those of you who are on Twitter, but to my colleague Jonathan Reynolds, who's an MP somewhere in the north, up there, he wrote a lovely article yesterday in the Huffington Post about being a dad in Parliament, and that's well worth a read as well. It's no secret, many of you in the room will know that I've not been a big supporter of the mayoral model for mayor. I really worry about communities being centralised, power being centralised, communities being excluded and further removed from that power. And I think the way our current mayor operates has confirmed that I was right to be sceptical about that.
Yeah.
And that's right, because I do like to be right and proved right. But he holds too much power in one post, and he chooses not to involve people in our politics. And I think our city is the poorer for that. But Marvin instinctively understands how to include people and communities in shaping this city. And crucially, he knows that leadership is about listening to those who disagree with you and keeping them close, as well as the friendly voices. And he will not only work across Bristol, but has the value to work with our neighbours in the neighbouring authorities as we develop and grow as a city region. Myself, Fangham and Kerry, who's also here this evening, are very clear on the need for a Labour mayor, because our constituents deserve and they need someone who focuses on the things that matter: housing, jobs and skills, and transport. I've just come back from Oldham, which is also in the north, and where it was actually raining. I know you shouldn't say that when you go to Manchester and Oldham, should you? But it just absolutely tipped down all day. But we have a terrific candidate up there in Jim McMahon, and he will be an outstanding replacement for Michael Meacher, who sadly died recently, and obviously was a good friend of Jeremy's. We had a terrible election in May nationally, and the challenges for Labour across the country are obvious. But here in Bristol, of course, we won the 3 seats, and support for Labour and our progressive values in the city is very clear. I'm delighted that Jeremy is with us tonight and this weekend, and with the added enthusiasm of renewed membership as well as some of us old hands following the leadership campaign, I know that Marvin is going to win this election in May. I'm very confident about that. I'm really looking forward to this. And I'm looking forward to hearing what you've got to say. Marvin Rees.
That's a big no caller. Health and safety. Anyone from a union can sort us out?
Thank you very much. Great welcome. I appreciate that. I'll just check on my wife. You haven't got the badge on yet. So sort that out. Thank you all for coming. Just thought I'd just share, I mean, this is the second time we've had Jeremy here. Just a few months ago, we had a fantastic afternoon walking around St Paul's, and we had a fantastic event over at the old Black Development Agency on Russelltown Avenue, which is now the Phoenix Centre. And just worth remembering that afternoon, we got out the cars and we were walking along Ashley Road, and it was pretty spectacular. People stopping, and one guy stopped at the junction, and I saw him look again, I saw him mouth in his car. Jeremy! Stopped his car on a junction, dangerously. Got out, wanted a picture. You may remember this, it was great. Then we went round to Picton Street, to the Bristolian Cafe, recommended, very good stuff. We were with Fangham and a few volunteers, and all the media were there. And Jeremy did an interview in a cordoned off area where people sit. And a friend of mine from church came along. I won't get his name actually. He's had some challenges, and he's been in rehab and come through. So he's a very earthy guy, ferociously practical, no airs and graces. And he come up, he went, Marvis, because he doesn't call me Marvin all the time. Marvis, and he walked past and he went, ah, and he walked back down and he put his hands out, big hug, and he went, Gerald! Reached over the barrier and gave Jeremy a big hug. Jeremy just hugged him, it was nice. I never told him after that. I saw him the next week, and I never told him he got the name wrong. He was happy. But I just, like everyone else, need to say some huge thanks. You know what I said last time, there's a number of things you have to get used to being a candidate. One is seeing your names on badges and being clapped and so forth, and that's something, you know, I go through a period of acclimatisation to. But also just the number of people that come out and give their time and don't ask anything for it. They just give their time, and it leaves you with an incredible sense of humility and clearly an incredible sense of indebtedness, not just to them but to their families as well. So I just some of the names mentioned tonight as well. Helen, every time. Helen's always there doing things. And I really don't know how she fits it all in. I think, Mark, we were out the other day and you made the comment, you know, if you want something done, go to a busy person. And Helen's just incredible. And I think with all that, as we talk about families, we also have to mention Helen's husband, Nick, as well. Where is he? There he is. I think you had a double portion of food though, so I think they've made up for it, right? Yeah. It was a big plate, and I got there last, and some of the trays were empty. Learned my lesson. Amy too. Where's Amy? Again, thanks for all you've done for today and accompanying me today. Anyway, Amy's here. Always, yeah. And regional office as well. And again, I mean, we couldn't do this without them, and has really underwritten tonight, made this financially possible so that everything we raise tonight goes into the campaign. So I just want to thank Phil and the team as well explicitly for that. Khan for the food. It was good food, Khan. Maybe we should tweet the address of your restaurant. It's in Westbury-on-Trim. Kevin tells me it's his local. It's fantastic. Bring him some business. And also, I want to thank Darren as well for stepping in right from the beginning and supporting me in the selection and chairing the campaign and really holding things together as we're just putting things together. And I want to thank also, give him a clap, and someone, I don't think she's here, Anna Keane as well, who was taking over managing my diary. I tell you what, there's no way I could cope if she wasn't doing that. And in that sense, I need Kelvin to go back and give her our big thanks. Yeah? Thank you very much, Kelvin, for giving me that. Okay? So I think, as people have said it, for me, I found a home in the Labour Party. My family was not political, although everything about them says they should have been political. My mum was born to a Welshman in Merthyr Tydfil, a hotbed of activism back in the day. She talks of, stale bread and cakes. I mean, this stuff sounds Dickensian, but this is what it was like. Very poor family. My great-grandfather was a 5-foot Welshman called Tallybach, who was a miner, who swore his children would never go down the mines. My white grandfather became basically a migrant worker, left South Wales looking for work, travelled between Bristol and London, and eventually settled in Bristol. And I would say part of the pain of my grandfather was that he was a ferociously intelligent man. He passed, my mum tells me, he passed the exams to go to Oxford, but because they were from a poor family, he couldn't go. He ended up working for the bus company and never rose to what you might call much. And that's not to say he wasn't anything. He was an incredible man in my life. But the fullness of who he could have been was not available to him simply because they were poor. And that is something that has ploughed itself through my life and my sense of aspiration and fairness. And we did a talk the other day on social mobility. My nan's sister, my nan didn't tell me, my granddad was very solid and stoical, but my nan's sister told me that the story comes back. The only time they ever saw him cry was when he was at his school, Castle Carvartha School in Kevin just outside Merthyr Tydfil, and he'd won an award for exceptional performance in his exams. And because his clothes were second-hand and he didn't fit him, some of the wealthier students from the school were ridiculing him behind stage, so he didn't go up and get his award. The only time he cried. Oh. So, make me So when I done my journey and what I call escaped Bristol and went to university, I wanted to go to South Wales because I thought it'd be honourable to my grandfather, and it was a kind of fulfilling. My granddad said fulfilled him. And through all that, I ended up quite an angry, not expressively being on the street, whatever, but I had an internal kind of rage about unfairness, an internal rage about what I saw around me, and a number of my friends that were smarter than me, more charismatic, better than me in all sorts of ways. And Kelvin, we grew up in the same background, so he knows many of these, and they didn't go on to achieve much. And carrying that burden forward into what kind of city we want. So absolutely, if we can plough this through our campaign, it'd be absolutely fantastic. I just want to say as well, this campaign is essential. It is for Bristol. All our elections, what we get next time is for 4 years. And it is essential that not only do we get a local government that serves the people of Bristol, but one that has the guts and the intellect to be able to stand up to bad policies coming out of central government that hurt Bristol people. And we haven't had that. It's been the false promise of... It's been the false promise of what was sold to Bristol as independent politics. And I think, too, the other thing that makes Bristol so important is that we are sending a national message. What happens here will be looked on. It is an essential part of creating the Labour story for the rest of the country. And a good victory here, with good Labour values and a groundswell of activism and support, will allow us to counter the negative press, the hostile press that's been aimed at us over these last few months especially, and years in general. But I just want to return to Jeremy and just say thank you so much for all the support you've given me personally. It's meant so much that, as I said before, it's the small things that count, not always the grand gestures, but you've mentioned me in your speeches. You made Bristol the first place you came and visited. You've clearly said, and you've sent every message that Bristol is important, and it's a real lift for me. And I think, as you see from the room, it's a real lift for everyone in here as well, that we can work together, build the relationships and the camaraderie we need amongst ourselves, and make sure we get out to Bristol and make sure that our message is heard, and we offer Bristol our values, and we offer Bristol something that is meaningfully different, not the false difference that was offered last time, but the meaningful difference that the people of Bristol need. Thank you, Jeremy.